Welcome to the continuous coverage of the off-cycle governorship elections here in Nigeria. Of course, we know that elections took place in Imo State, took place in Bayelsa State, and more importantly, took place in Kogi State, as we are actually collecting results from different venues. Although in Imo State, collation has been completed and the governor, Hope Uzodimma, has been announced. Now, let's say the elections has been collated and it continues with Bayelsa and not forgetting Kogi State, as we prefer to provide all the updates you desire, as Arise News has been keeping tabs on all the accounts from all the locations. I am Aaron Akirijola.
And I'm Temitope Fagbemi. Our off-cycle election coverage continues in a moment. Well, as we continue the coverage of the elections in the 3 states across Nigeria, we are now being joined in the Lagos studio by astute political analyst Dr. Victor Okhai and Emeka Madunagu. Also joining us in the analysis from the Abuja studio is a member of the Situation Room and the executive director at the Emma Ezeazu Center for Good Governance and Accountability, Umar Odi. Thank you so much, gentlemen, and of course, Umar Odi, for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure being here.
Well, I'm going to start with you.
Having us.
Well, you're welcome. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Okhai. Give us your assessment of how the elections have played out so far in Imo-Kogi, Bayelsa. Will you say there's been any improvement in INEC's performance compared to what we had during the general elections earlier this year?
I'm afraid not, because some of the issues that have come up are issues that keep recurring over and over again. And some of these include issues of logistics, issues of late arrival of materials, and controversies, even in resource collation, and all of that, It's sad that we are unable to conduct elections. Politicians will always be politicians. I mean, no politician ever goes in expecting to lose, and so they go in there all upbeat, optimistic, telling even the person that is not sure of 2 votes will tell his followers that he's going to win. We know that. But certain things are very obvious. If results are coming in, you would know that, okay, this is the way it is. There are results that you can easily predict, depending on the strength of where the politician is coming from and how the votes would have gone. But to begin to hear things like overvoting, for instance, and such overvotings, you begin to see things like that coming. There are electoral officers at those polling units. And then you see things like that, the results like that, coming right up to the final collation center. It makes us begin to wonder, when will INEC begin to get it right? And so on little things like that, I want to say that INEC still has a lot to do, because they need to inspire confidence in, the electorate. But overall, what happens, as we would say, however it goes, elections get delivered. And if we have anything to complain about, as they say, go to court.
Okay. Let's turn our attention to Umar in Abuja and get her thoughts about the fact that at least we are looking at off-cycle elections in 3 states. And more importantly, a result has come out from the off-cycle election, and that is the fact that, as it stands right now, Imo has re-elected Hope Uzodimma as governor for another 4 years, sweeping all 27 local governments in the state. And he says it's the testament of a job well done and his popularity in those states. Emma, what do you make of this? Because it seems like a clean sweep, and the popular mandate in Imo is that Hope Uzodimma has done well and has been returned for another 4 years.
Thank you for having me. I think what happened in Imo State is there was a preparation for for what happened yesterday, since January 2020. And the climax was yesterday. What happened yesterday was so sad. I think the INEC actually did better in Kogi and Bayelsa. Because in Imo State, you have polling units, nobody came out to vote, and results were announced. And like one polling unit in Okhai, accredited voters were 73, and you have APC winning 599 votes, and other places. So it's worrisome, because we have always been shouting that if you have a relation of APC national, deputy national chairmen as the rec of Imo State, then there is an issue, and INEC closed his ears. And now you see the uploaded results and the accredited voters, and there are differences. So you now know that whatever that happened in Imo State was predetermined. But most importantly, what I saw in Imo State is the lessons, because there are so many lessons to be learned from what happened in Imo State yesterday. How political parties were not ready to do elections in Imo State. Because when we want to go to battle against an institution that is biased, against somebody that is very strong, that can destroy 12 local governments in order to remain in power. The Oru zone was destroyed completely. Okigwe zone, for the past 2 to 3 months, was also gone. 9 local government areas in Okigwe zone. So when you have such a person, you have to have a candidate that people can trust, people will go to battle with. So when political parties decide not to have a candidate that people can relate with, just to have anyhow candidate, nobody will want to stake his or their neck for anyhow candidate. So political parties need to learn lessons that you should not say vote at the primary elections when you select your candidate. Because what happens that when you say your vote to just the highest bidder who has no credibility to convince people to come out and go to battle for the person, then there is a problem. Political party would have learned a lesson of yesterday. The political class do not learn lessons. But if they are sincere that they need to come back to take the state or the country from where it is today, they need to put the best leg forward. And also, that best leg, no matter what you tell people, it's only the few who wants to collect money to cook soup yesterday will come out. No matter what you tell people to come out, if they cannot identify with a personality that they have confidence that the person is a good alternative, they won't come out to waste their time. That's why you can see INEC announcing results where election did not hold in Imo State, because people refuse to come out. And actually, I align myself with anybody who didn't come out. What are you coming out to do? Who are you coming out to stake your life for? No, it is better you stay at home. When the political party decide to put somebody that has the credibility and that can give people confidence that I can do things differently, then the people will follow the person. So if you don't want to you want to say your vote at the primary election where you choose your candidate, go ahead and be selling your vote. The people are done already. They are not afraid of war. They are hungry. They are brutalized. They have been killed. They have been oppressed. So they can endure the next 4 years oppression. But they cannot change one bad leader with another one. No, that is not what they want to do.
Now, very well said, Umar. I'm going to come to you, Mr. Madunagu. Now, you've heard what Umar Odi said about the election in Imo State and the fact that, some results were declared even though elections did not take place in some certain local government areas or in some certain polling units. Now, INEC refused to entertain any petitions, from party agents and went ahead and declared Hope Uzodimma as the winner of the elections, which I guess we can safely say that the results will be disputed, in court. Now, I'm wondering, do you think the court will take into cognizance this this scenario that Emma's painted, that, some elections did not hold, results were declared. And then I'm also wondering, how can we strengthen, our electoral process to the point that ultimately it is the voters who will decide who their leaders should be and not the courts?
Yeah, thank you very much. To your first question, really it's up to the parties that choose to go to court to prove that the election that held yesterday was significantly marred by irregularities. Yeah, but of course, if the number of voters on the register, if the results are more than the number of voters on the register, that automatically casts a doubt over the genuineness, over the legality of those results. Then secondly, Nigerian politicians are really desperate, and the desperation is getting worse because politics is the most lucrative venture in Nigeria today. So people just feel, what's the point setting up a business or setting up an industry? Why don't I just put money into politics, get some thugs, get some arms, small arms are circulating everywhere, get some small arms, and be able to muzzle my way through any of the parties and put up a showing, which is very unfortunate. Then you also see a situation where state resources are deployed in such a brazen, unconstitutional manner. For instance, look at the Imo State. The state government paid for all the hotel rooms in Imo State. I mean, that was an abuse of public funds, because what it meant was that it was a deliberate attempt to shut out opponents, to shut out observers from getting hotel rooms, which was not right at all. So the lesson to be learned here is that, you see, INEC must sit up. Yes, in Kogi State, INEC, at least you could see that they made some efforts to try to do things the right way, even though the resident electoral commissioner tried to contradict the national headquarters on the issue of pre-recorded election sheets. But up till now, although INEC has said they're investigating it, but up till now, they've not told us which party was actually involved in that. So INEC needs to do much better. Then the security agencies also were lax. All the noise they were making, even National Security Advisor will do this, will do that, were just empty talk. Empty talk. Because there were still killings yesterday. Party agents were beaten. You had issues of, INEC and INEC official abducted, result sheets torn, ballot papers snatched. So what are they talking about? I wonder if these security chiefs actually realize that, these things are a big indictment on their status. When you tell us that, okay, don't worry, you can come out to vote, everything, and the people can see barefaced violence, then next time, what do you want the people to do? To come out again and get killed? No. And it's unfortunate when operatives of the state allow non-state actors to overrun their apparatus. What it means is that, well, okay, fine, the people should sometimes maybe look in the direction of non-state actors to protect them, like what we see happening in some parts of the country, where people pay illegal taxes to non-state actors so that they can go to the farm or they can go about their businesses. So, you see, it is just that the issue of, state capture, the state has captured the political space, but also allowed non-state actors whom they are sympathetic to also capture part of the space, to help them to move things in the direction of their whims and caprices, which is condemnable.
All right, okay. I would like to hear from you, Victor, Doctor, and also from Umma on this particular subject. Like Emeka just mentioned, we're beginning to see a trend actually creep up, whereby dirty politics, as some would call it, is beginning to get overboard. For example, in Imo State, like you mentioned, the government tried to rent out all the hotel rooms as much as possible just to stifle the opposition. We also learned, of course, it was actually kicked against heavily by IPAC and several other CSOs about the fact that the government in Imo State at a certain time said, for you to post or erect structures in the states, you had to pay a sum of money, about 54 million, to be able to campaign with posters, billboards, and the rest of them. That you have to pay to the signage company, the signage ministry in the state before you can actually do this. And we are beginning to see incumbents getting desperate and getting creative in ways of stifling the opposition, all in the bid to get ahead. And there is no free and fair playing ground anymore. For you, is this becoming a worrying sign?
Obviously, this is very worrying. And it is at moments like this you begin to wonder if, I'm sorry to say this, but you begin to wonder the difference between military and civilian regimes. What we have seen, or the trend that is going on now, is really, really, really dangerous and seemingly becoming unchecked. I mean, nobody is worrying about it. And the way we are gradually descending, consciously or unconsciously, into a one-party state because there's so much impunity in the land. And unfortunately, and this for me is an indictment on not just INEC, but the judiciary, the so-called last hope of the common man. A lot of things happen now, and normally you would assume that, okay, when these things happen, there is a place you can go to and cry for help. But where will you go to? Even the very judiciary is beholden to the executive. So there's no hope. And this is what breeds violence, because as you say, where peaceful change becomes impossible, violent change becomes, inevitable. And you find out that people want power just as desperately as the incumbents or those that are there, then have to devise other equally devious, dubious, and violent means in order to do it. And at the end of the day, we're the ones that suffer. You heard what Uma said when she was talking about the situation on ground, where it's like people don't think their votes count anymore, that they should even bother to go out there and vote. It's becoming a dangerous trend. And something that is happening right now, and I want us to really take note, is that decent people are not going into politics. We have always said that decent people should go into politics, but that's not happening anymore. You find it, and this has nothing to do with the people who are contesting right now. None of them is, at least to the best of my knowledge. But you find a situation now where people who get their money by other dirty means, we don't need to name anything now, go out there, get this money, and want to launder it through politics. These people have no qualms about how they have no sense of decency in them. They bring this money and then employ thugs. Employing thugs simply means, and I talked here yesterday about this issue of no consequence for bad behavior, and that's where you get the impunity. So they do this, they come, and they know they can get away with it. Why will they get away with it? Because there will be no justice at the end of the day. And so this trend has continued, and at the end of the day, when people get power by all means necessary like that, they don't feel obligated to serve the people. When you get in there because you have the money to get in there, then you don't feel obligated to the voter, because look, you can jolly well tell the voter, look, you didn't vote for me, you didn't put me there. And you can decide to do whatever you want to do, So it is becoming a very dangerous trend. Honestly, even I am at a loss right now as to solutions, because where I would have thought we would get solution, we're not getting it, which is the judiciary. I keep going back to that. Because after the politicians have messed up everywhere, you expect one place where you can go to and someone will listen to you, and if you cry out, he will give you justice. But if they are now colluding with the politicians, or if they have become politicians in, what do you call what they wear now? It's not wigs. It's wigs as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if they are also politicians in wigs or on the bench, then I mean it's a sad situation. But today that is the reality. Look at what's happening in Kogi. The governor is not the incumbent, but he wants to impose his own candidate, and he's doing it by whatever means necessary. Okay? In Imo, we have seen the same thing. Bayelsa is sort of evenly matched because of the federal might, you know, and the fact that the person that has come to contest has been there before, and he went into government. Some of them go in there to amass wealth in order to come back and fight the political battle. And that's what is splitting Bayelsa, what's happening in Bayelsa right now, where you can see the protest that is happening by the incumbent, you know, who is from a different party, and then he's contending against federal might. He cannot control the military or the police. But if the person contesting against him has the sympathy of, you know, the federal government, then obviously the police and the military will be in his favor, and they may turn the other way as long as things don't work against him. So these are the problems that we're confronted with right now. It's a hydra-headed monster, and I don't know where it's going to lead us.
All right, Emma, let's get to hear from you. How do we check the excesses of politicians who decide to use their powers, especially those in government, to stifle opposition from freely going about their business and actually campaigning and canvassing for votes?
Okay, I think we need to, we have operated with the 2022 Electoral Act, and we have seen the gaps. I think we need to go back to reform of Electoral Acts and the Constitution, relevant provision in the Constitution that is directly related to elections. I think INEC has too much powers. In the beginning, we used to campaign and fight that they should give INEC big power so that INEC can conduct, because if INEC wants to conduct free, fair, inclusive, credible, and peaceful elections, it's possible. If INEC has shown the willpower and willingness and commitment to conduct free, fair, peaceful, and credible, inclusive and credible elections, you will see that what happened in some local government in Kogi, where they chased out party agents and observers from observing correlation of results, and also what happened in Imo will not happen. We need to go back to reform the Electoral Act. And the first thing we must do is that all election petitions must be concluded before swearing in of anybody, number one. And the next thing we need to do is to try to reduce INEC powers, because INEC has become a threat to our democracy. Politicians are the biggest threat, but we know also INEC are a threat. So we need also to look at the political party primaries, because the way they have conducted these primaries have not helped this democracy consolidation. We need to look at it with the law to make them to now, because they are the ones who sell votes, who start the selling of votes. They sell big-time votes before the people start looking for 1,000, a cup of rice or cooked rice, as it happened in Imo and Bayelsa yesterday, where people collected cooked of rice in order to vote for some parties. So if we have a solid law, and we don't actually need these off-cycle elections, we need to end it. We need to, because INEC has shown good faith from year 2020, but we have lost all the gains. So there's no point looking at it. We need to go back for electoral reform. And the people have to come in. It's not, because if you are enjoying the injustice, there people are suffering now because you are taking money from our collective resources, are eating. Tomorrow it may go against you. PDP had all the time in the whole world to give us credible elections. They were doing small injustice, but the APC have come to do the big time work. So what you did not do when you had the opportunity will surely work against you, because there is always a day after tomorrow, and that day after tomorrow will not favor you. For sure. So we need to go back to reform Electoral Act and try to reduce these INEC powers. INEC has become a threat to democracy. Political class, we know they are the worst threat to democracy. The people actually need to rise because we are keeping quiet for a very long time. If we allow this to go on and keep quiet, Edo and Ondo will do the same next year. And it will follow suit. Anambra a year after. Then we go back to Ekiti and Osun. It will be the same story. And we keep on coming to endorse INEC irregularity on TV stations. Security personnel looking the other way, and things will be happening. But also must commend the soldiers in Bayelsa yesterday. They did things differently in Bayelsa yesterday. But in Imo, all of them looked the other way. Why the business of election rigging was going on. But we need to come to a point, because when you rig the election, INEC rig this election with the security personnel, then there will be bad governance. Because if you do not win election, if you do not win the people's mandate, you will not be accountable to the people. There will be no accountability. There will be no accountability of the resources and the power. You will not bother about their welfare and security that you are supposed actually to be in charge to perform. So you will not account to them. We end up with bad governance as a result of a rigged election. So this is the time when people will start taking interest in what concerns them. What we are having as poverty and deprivation and degradation and oppression is because election was rigged. That's the correlation. Election was rigged. We end up with bad governance. People can no longer say it's not my business. Let's wait and pray to God. After next 4 years, God might answer our prayer. God has given us power to pray and also to step out and say, enough of this. We can't continue. We can't hand over the country to criminals. We need to even be talking. Please leave us alone. If you cannot perform, even if you are a criminal, we have ended up with criminal enterprise. From INEC, from the judiciary, from the legislature. There's no way you can look to actually. But the people have to redefine it. Because when they shout, the government will come and listen and explain. But people will keep quiet and be praying. How can you pray without work? My Bible told me prayer without work is not. You pray and work. Work and prayer go hand in hand. We can actually be saying consistently that all the reform you see in INEC, I have been part of it. We have been struggling. We have been struggling to ensure that INEC has so much powers to give us free, fair, and credible elections. In year 2011, we saw somebody who was committed to give free, fair, credible election. And the person is always apologizing when he makes mistake. The INEC chairman there. That was why if we say you did not do well here, he will come out and say, sorry, we made a mistake. It can get better. But now somebody is looking into our eyes and faces and say, go to her. When they ask you to go to court, actually they are saying go to her. Because they know there is no solution in the courts. So we can actually come together and say, no, we cannot continue in this way. We have to change these things. And we are the owners of this country. Democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It's not by the few individuals who want to take politics to make money, and they do not know they will not carry money to heaven. And also, they do not know that the injustice they install today will work against them tomorrow. Because surely, there is always a day after tomorrow. We need to go back to reform the Electoral Act. Reduce the powers of INEC, conclude the petitions before swearing in anybody, and also to make sure that upload of election result is mandatory by law, and it has to be on good time. And also we make sure that if you cannot announce the result where the accredited voters are smaller than the result you are going to upload. No, you can't. We have to go back. We have seen the gaps of this Electoral Act. We need to go back. Because these people who benefited from these election irregularities will not do it. But we can make them to do it by just saying, asking questions. These people, you came through this. We have seen it in the past, in year 2007. Madunagu of brazen memory was a politician. He said the election that brought me to power was full of irregularities. And he set up wires. We now need to appoint, if you want to appoint a chairman of INEC, you have to advertise that position. And they have to do a background check on who becomes our chairman of INEC. And they have to set up eminent Nigerians to interview.
Well, it seems we've lost audio connection with Maudi. Of course, we'll get back to her once we reestablish connection. But I would like to come back to the studio here, Mr. Madunagu. Now, you've heard everything that Maudi said. She actually suggested, that the army did quite well in Bayelsa State. But one of the candidates, in Bayelsa State, Temipre Silva, accused security agents, especially the army, of being biased. So I'd like to have your own assessment of how security operatives performed during the off-circle elections yesterday, and then how should the Nigerian army react to this accusation from Temipre Silva? Can we expect an investigation? Do you expect an investigation?
It's very interesting that Temipre Silva is talking about that, and then today you had a protest at INEC's office in Agua. People are also accusing INEC, accusing the military, they're accusing the security agencies of not doing anything about the alleged doctored results from Nembe Basambiri, and which is believed to be Silva's stronghold. So I don't know if it was just a dog whistle that Silva's call amounted to. Because if it is believed that the military, the security agencies didn't do anything, have not done anything to stop the manipulation of results from your perceived stronghold, and you're accusing them of also preventing your agents from accessing those polling units, then something is missing somewhere in the middle. Then generally, I think the security agencies, well, they were more visible in terms of all talk, so much talk and little action. Generally, because there were still killings yesterday. Although they arrested some people here and there with cash, with ammunition, with weapons, and they were able to also prevent some cases of ballot box snatching and all of that. But overall, their performance was not really was not really impressive. I mean, there's a lot that the Nigerian security architecture, Nigerian security system can do to reassure people that, yes, they are in charge. There's nowhere the security agencies cannot cover if they decide to really work, if they decide to give Nigerians a sense of belonging. But you can see, of course, if people are not assured of their security, in terms of electioneering and voting, then what do you expect? The turnout will be low. So you saw the rhetoric in different states, threats and all of that, from the incumbent, from the side of the incumbent and the side of the opposition, threats and all of that. So a lot of people just generally stayed back. Then again, something raised about the quality of candidates, who ran against the incumbents. I mean, definitely, if you don't, for instance, in Imo State, there was really little that anybody expected the PDP candidate to have done against Hope Uzodinma in terms of, because he even had issues within his own party. That's Sam Dadi Anyanwu. He had issues within his own party. Then the Labour Party man also had issues with one faction that kept going back and forth between the appeal court and the Supreme Court, trying to invalidate his candidature. So that also really seriously affected the concentration of the party in terms of campaigning. Of course, and all the while, Hope Uzodinma was busy running up and down doing his campaigns. Now, that is not to excuse the irregularities or to say that the party should not go to court and vigorously pursue that issue of overvoting. We saw the issue of overvoting was seriously flogged in the case of Osun State in terms of the vote, in terms of the election petitions that emanated from the last Osun State governorship elections. So I think that issue needs to be vigorously flogged. And INEC should tell us if we want to still maintain the era of manual conduct of elections, let's just forget about spending billions of naira on, on phantom beavers, IREV, and all of that. Let's just forget about it so that we'll know if we use those manual methods and we keep moving, instead of moving with bullet trains, we prefer to move with donkeys. Let's do that for as long until we now realize how badly we're hurting ourselves. But INEC should stop this game. INEC should stop taking Nigerians for granted. INEC should be able to conduct elections that are free, fair, and credible. But you know the interesting thing? What a lot of people have been saying is that, hold on, even though results have been declared, wait for the court. The Supreme Court has not ruled yet. So you have to wait for the Supreme Court to rule. That is when you will know who actually won the governorship election in those states. And it says a lot about INEC's unwillingness to correct its lapses, its glaring lapses, not even perceived lapses, glaring lapses. It says a lot.
Well, allow me to interrupt you. Could it be that INEC's hands are tied? If we are complaining about this time and time again and it keeps coming up, could it be that there's a fundamental problem, within INEC? I
think the problem has to do with the individuals, not understanding their roles. Because, okay, fine, it's independent National Electoral, then let them remove the IN and just call it Dependent National Electoral Commission. So we know they are dependent on the people who nominated the chairman, nominated the National Commission. Because when you see that some of the commissioners, there are strong allegations that some of the commissioners are related to people in certain places. Then that certain powerful Nigerians nominated some of their national commissioners, and nobody is saying anything about this. There were demands that, for instance, the one of the resident electoral commissioners should be removed, should have been maybe removed, redeployed.
You will need to hold on. We'll still come back to this conversation in a moment. Let's actually cross over to Niger Delta, where our Rise Niger Delta correspondent joins us from the Bayelsa Collation Center. Ovietemi, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, Aaron Akiri-Jolan, of course. We're here at the Collation Center. Earlier on, 3 results were announced that's talking about Kulukma-Opokuma Council area and Ogbea Council area and the Madunagu local government area. All 3 results were announced earlier, and then the officials had to take a break to reconvene at 3 o'clock. It's a few minutes past 3, and they are gradually coming in. So any minute from now, we'll be getting results. I understand the one for Nembe is ready. The one for Sagbama is also ready. Did I see brass somewhere along here? I think so. So we're ready. I believe 2 or 3 results will be taken back to back when they eventually reconvene a few minutes from now. Aaron?
Ovietemi, we understand that there were protests earlier today at the INEC office in Yenagoa. Now, can you give us an update on that? Has INEC addressed all concerns and worries expressed by the protesters?
Yes, Temitokwe, earlier today there was a protest outside. Of course, it could only, the protesters could only move to a point where the security agencies would not allow them to go beyond. And their grievances has to do with Nembe, specifically mentioning Basambri, Woma, and Okpama in brass. But that's for People's Democratic Party protesting. That was actually their grouse. It is now left for the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to address whatever issues they have raised, but that has not been done yet, though I understand they were told to wait. So that's the reason they are still out there. Just a few meters away from here, you can see the crowd of PDP apologists, members. They are not just happy with what they felt. However, we haven't heard the result yet, but I believe they know what they know that I don't know, that we all will get to know when eventually the result is announced here. Timi Tokwe.
All right, Ovietemi, talk to us. We knew that, or we heard that a little drama played out earlier on in regards to the venue of the Collation Center, and there were talks about moving the results to Yenagoa, the state capital, and a lot of people frowned and said, no, it should remain in Brass local government area. I think that has been resolved. But just give us a background, because it's been accusations, counter-accusations between the APC and the PDP in the state. Both parties accusing the other of malpractices, sharp practices, and trying to get ahead. Talk to us about this.
Aaron, you're quite right about that. The PDP accusing the APC accusing the PDP. It appears all the way from the beginning, it was a 2-horse race. Well, we have gotten so used to that in the Nigerian democratic setting. Well, political parties accuse each other. None would come and accuse a party that does not have any stake at all. So whatever their grouse was, we just watch and tell it the way it is. Now, you're talking about brass. I never at any point in time foresaw the electoral umpire announcing results of brass in brass. No, this has been the tradition when it comes to governorship election. They have to move to the collation center in Yenagoa, the capital city of Bayelsa State, to do that. And I think that we were going to witness, because I saw somebody a few minutes ago. Was it the electoral officer of brass? I don't know yet, but in a few minutes we will confirm that. So I did say earlier that that of Nembe is ready, and we'll get to hear. Sagbama is also ready, so we have two confirmed that will be taken back to back, and then perhaps a third. So when I talk about the contention between the political parties, it is normal. As journalists, we've gotten so used to it. They throw tantrums, banters at each other, even before elections commence. And then after the elections, it continues. It's a drama between the PDP and the APC, and we are spectators in a Shakespearean play with Nigeria as the venue.
Well, Obiatemi, I mean, I really don't know what to say about that, but I guess it's quite true. Now, talking about accusations and counter-accusations, or banter and drama, you know, as you have called it, one of the candidates, you know, in Bayelsa State, Timipre Silva, accused security agents, especially the army, of being biased. Any word from the army or any of the security agencies on this accusation?
Usually, words from the security agencies do not readily come. Maybe, just maybe, if they want to say something, a statement will be issued. But nothing, no word yet from about the accusation leveled against them by the APC governorship candidate Timipre Marlin Silva. None yet, but you see, it's a back and forth between the political parties. The People's Democratic Party is also accusing the SWAT team in Basambri of aiding a particular political party. Of course, predictably, they're talking about the APC. And we as journalists, we don't have such details with us. So when we watch the PDP accusing the APC, accusing the SWAT team, we also watch as spectators in this political drama where the APC governorship candidate is also accusing the army. So we just have to see how it goes. It's getting quite interesting here. But one good take home from the exercise so far is the fear, the tension that built up to the elections. Many thought there would be much chaos, much violence, people losing their lives has been the norm in the past years. But this is a marked departure from the norm, which is good news, actually, for Bayelsa State and for voters in Bayelsa State. It's also good for the reputation of a state that has 8 local government areas. Very few, you may say, but about 75% water. That is littoral, that is riverine. And so the creeks, the rivulets, the rivers, the seas will be very busy during the election period. But we haven't done much so far. And just yesterday also, the first PRO was so happy with what he witnessed in Bayelsa when he was on monitoring duty. He even did an overfly of certain areas which many thought would be violence, hot spots and all that. But the information coming in is something that is quite encouraging. Maybe after this exercise is done, after the battle is lost and won, the electoral umpire, the INEC, the political parties and stakeholders will build on that success. I think so.
All right, building on the success, but before we build on the success, you've actually mentioned that this particular election, the off-cycle election in Bayelsa State, is really an outlier, understanding that violence always greets every elections in Bayelsa State. Can you point to a particular factor or a particular move that's ensured that this particular election was almost peaceful?
Yeah, I like your word, almost peaceful. You came close to saying peaceful. But you see, there must always be pockets of violence here or there. It is the norm. No society is entirely free of criminals, so one or two persons may want to try one or two things to do that would breach the peace. This is Bayelsa, a state with a checkered history of violence during elections. But this one is a marked departure. I reiterate that it is good for us in the state, it is good for the people, it is good for the government, it is good for the stakeholders, irrespective of the political parties they belong to, that it is not reported that many lives were lost. We've had cases of those who died during election, a violent clash and all that. Not also in the build-up to the elections, about 7 days ago and about 3 days ago, there were explosives, reported cases of explosives in 2 homes in Yenagoa, the capital city. But on election day, and up till didn't heard such in Yenagoa. So the expectation, hope and prayer is that it should be maintained. The status quo should remain. That when you talk about Bayelsa, it should be known for peaceful polls. That is the hope and expectation. Aaron, yes, you know, when you talk about Bayelsa, the flashpoints, Southern Nigeria has always a recurring decimal when you talk about flashpoints. But so far, so good. And the prayer is it should remain so. The results haven't come yet. I heard from the grapevine that some persons are still voting. In other words, some units are still experiencing voting. I wouldn't know because it is not independently confirmed. But I can also tell you that in Koluama 1, there was a disruption. Was it Koluama 2, Koluama 1? There was a disruption yesterday. Could it be one of the places where voting is ongoing, perhaps? The electoral umpire had to do something to ensure people are not disenfranchised. I can't say. Maybe, to hope that people do not get disenfranchised. But that's the situation so far. That violence toga is being gradually shed for peace to reign and for the INEC to build upon that. In other words, Bayelsa, Rivers, Delta, Ondo, these are people that are populated by a particular ethnic nationality, the Ijaws. So in one way or another, they are related. So perhaps it is dawning on them that we are brothers and sisters after all. Why do we kill ourselves over politicians? I must emphasize here, politicians whose decision tomorrow you may not know. Today they are in the PDP, tomorrow they are in the APC. They're just going back and forth, pushed and tossed like puppets on a string. Aaron?
Well, Oviatame George, some food for thoughts there, definitely. Now, I'd like us to talk about, finally, before we let you go, we know that the EFCC said it arrested 14 suspected vote buyers, intercepted 11 million naira cash in Imo-Kogi and Bayelsa State. But I'd like you to talk to us about the impact that the EFCC had on the elections in Bayelsa State. Would you say that vote buying was significantly reduced?
I really cannot say vote buying was significantly reduced, but there was vote buying. It is one sad aspect of our democratic setting, an elections that is not willing to go out any day. Vote buying is like the gray hair on the head. You pluck one off, another comes up in its stead. It's not going out any soon. So there was vote buying in Bayelsa. All political parties, perhaps the major ones, are guilty of the same crime. You're talking about the EFCC. How many persons have been paraded? I haven't seen. How many have been prosecuted? I haven't seen. So you're talking about EFCC. They are human beings. They are Nigerians. I believe there are some good officers and officials of the EFCC who would want to do something about it to change the narrative. But it's not happening anytime soon. About vote buying, yes, there was vote buying yesterday.
All right, many thanks to you.
Is it going out tomorrow? I cannot say.
Okay, many thanks to you, Oviatame George, Arise News Niger Delta correspondent. We'll still be keeping tabs with you as we expect collation to begin in earnest in Yenagoa as results are beginning to trickle in. Thank you very much. All right, back to the studio here. We still have Emeka here and also Dr. Okhai. I was about to touch on that particular subject about vote buying. Of course, like Temitope said, 14 people were arrested yesterday across Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa State. totaling about 11.5 million naira, and some will say that's just 11.4 million naira, I beg your pardon. And that's just almost like a drop in the ocean, because 9.3 million was actually intercepted in Bayelsa, 1.7 was intercepted in Imo, and when you even press it further into Kogi State, also monies were actually seized there. And you look at it and you say that 11 million, 11.4, that's literally a joke that people said more than 10 times of that. Of course, it's not been independently verified, but that's the truth. But then more than 10 times of that was actually spent. We're still talking about vote buying in 2023 in regards to the election. Is this going to ever see an end to this ugly trend? Or we will keep caressing this particular subject that people are being induced to vote for a political party or a candidate over the other?
I'm afraid it will get worse. Again, because there's no consequence for bad behavior. After every election cycle, the political party and the politicians are supposed to account for money spent. It is a requirement.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to report and say, this is how much came in, and this is how we spend the money, and whatever the case is. But I can assure you that that requirement is just put there in the books for the sake of it. There's no proper accountability as to how much money you receive, how much money you have spent, and where you spent that money. Like you rightly pointed out, the money that, this is chicken feed, so to say, the kind of money you're talking about. You cannot even run a local government election with anything near that at all. It's very expensive. And a lot of that money goes into vote buying. It's not just what you see on the... look at what happens during primaries, for instance, where they spend dollars, not even naira, for delegates. And then they camp them, and then everybody's protecting, his delegates. Sometimes delegates come in, they put them in hotels and cordon off that place. Nobody sees them until the morning or the day of the election, as the case may be. So this is just for the optics. All the EFCC is just for the optics. Truth is, if they really want to arrest people, they know where to check and they know how to do it. We're talking about BVN. We're talking about accounts and all that. No significant amount of money is moved without the knowledge of the political parties. How do I know? First, once you become what is called a PEP, politically exposed person, either as a politician or as a family member, sometimes even friends of politicians, you are considered a politically exposed person. And so you're under watch. It therefore means that if there's any unusual alert in your account, the EFCC can request, and the bank is obliged, to let them know, particularly above certain amounts, that, that so much money has gone in or come in or gone out of your account. Politicians may be smart about, which is why some of them will build air-conditioned huts and put money in there for a time like this. But regardless of that, when people collect this money, so they also put them in their bank accounts. Once you're politically exposed, it is easy to identify. But the truth is that the agencies of government that should look after these things, what you see is selective victimization. If they don't like your face, they can come after you because they will have the information. But if it favors them, they look the other way. So vote buying, I'm afraid, will continue because the people have also been impoverished.
Sure.
And the only motivation right now for them is just money, cash. And they have also known, so they trade. And so when politicians come to them, they know that there's nothing else they can get in the next 4 years. Like, so what's in it for me? And it's to the highest bidder. Ma talked about it earlier when she was talking. Alluded to it rather when she was talking. People are not interested anymore in who the good candidate is. Just If you pay them, that's all. And then they do what they have to do. Otherwise, why would you get issues of overvoting? I saw a video this morning where security agencies and agents of government and INEC were seen, I think it was in Bayelsa, you know. Some of them, even with their reflective jackets and all that, they were busy thumbprinting, you know. But someone was, how do I put it, patriotic enough, even though he was in their midst, he recorded it. So when you see things like that, they couldn't have been doing it for nothing. It's all part of the vote buying. You know, whether you're doing it directly with the voters or you're doing it with agents who are there thumbprinting, you know, but it's all the same. And you buy votes, just in conclusion, you buy votes either through direct voters, through INEC and its agents, or through collaborating, security agents who are, you know, who are there and supporting the very act itself.
Oh, very well said. Now, I'd like to go to Umar in Abuja. Umar, as we look forward to the off-season election in Ondo and Edo states in 2024, what lessons can we learn from the conduct of the elections in Imo-Kogi and Bayelsa state that will help strengthen our electoral process going forward?
Okay, I think like what we saw in Osun State last year, I think the only hope we have is with the citizenry. There is no excuse for a voter or an electorate to go and say his or her vote for 1,000, 5,000, 6,000. It's a shame. Or 10,000 or 15 or 20, whatever the cost is, the rate is. It is a shame. I think the people have to start preparing. Because the 2000, whether September next year, October, like it happened last time, is around the corner. By April, they are going to do primaries. And the political parties should know that if you want to fight now, you should bring up a candidate that the people can trust. And that candidate, you have to present it to the people and say, this person, he has this, he has done this in the past, he has done this, he's not a thief, he cannot steal your resources, he will do one or two things. And they have to take people into confidence. But whether they call the people or not, the people have to call the candidate they will choose to come and have a conversation with them. The people are the ones that will make a difference next year. I don't see much hope in INEC. Neither do I see any hope in the security personnel. Seeing what happened yesterday didn't give me much hope. But I know that the citizens make a difference in Osun State last year. And they can actually upgrade it. Because these people who sold their votes in Imo yesterday for a cup of rice saw Anambra women in year 2021, 6th November, rejecting money to sell their votes. They could have learned from the Anambra women, but they didn't. So they don't follow the best practice. They follow a bad one. So, but they can change the narrative next year by saying that INEC do not lead this election. You don't start shouting INEC a day before the election or 1 week before the election. We should have started in Ondo and Edo by 6 months ago. But it is not too late. The people have to wake up. This is the time to begin the conversation. Political parties don't give us bad candidates with fraudulent past or present. And everybody get up, go and collect your PVC. We saw it happen in this country. We saw people fighting last year, July, August, September, to register to collect their PVC. This is the time to do it. That's the only hope for Ondo and Edo. And we should also not keep quiet over this reform of electoral acts and constitutional provision for elections in Nigeria. We should continue talking. The people ask questions. How much did you spend for this off-cycle election? And I agree totally with Emeka there. So if we do not want to use beavers, like what happened in Imo State yesterday, you don't want to use the accredited voters to announce your result. There is no no point. The only value that BVAS is adding is to make sure the people that were accredited are the ones who voted, and also use that number to upload the result and cross-check that is the normal thing. So if you don't want to use the number of accredited voters, then dump it. Let's go back to our past life, where we now manufacture names. When you see registered voters in Imo State, you'll be seeing names of Ethiopian people there. So let's go back to the past life. You can't be using so much money to talk about BVAS when you don't even use what the BVAS gave you, that the accredited voters. So people will now insist, INEC, if you must use the accredited voters, we have to reform the law to ensure that it is mandatory for INEC to use the number accredited by their BVAS they actually procured, and also that let that number reflect the result announced and uploaded. If you don't upload the result that your BVAS give you, then you have no business. And the law should state clearly, any INEC chairman that organized election full of irregularities should just resign or be sacked immediately. Let the law have it there. If you don't want to resign, you should be sacked. If you don't organize free, fair, inclusive and credible and peaceful election, you have no business to be there. It's not a learning process. It is for somebody who has expertise, who has capability and capacity to organize, and integrity, most importantly, integrity to organize it. If you do not have these things, you have no business to come there. Both the national commissioners and the regs, if you do not have integrity and expertise and capability and capacity, you have no business to be there. And the politicians should stop nominating national commissioners and the reg and also the chairman. That is not. The people should choose who man those independent electoral commission. But if you do not want, let's go back to our past life. So anything goes.
All right.
And don't be speaking English and you are not doing.
Okay, thank you very much, Umar. I want to say many thanks to you, Emeka, also, and Dr. Okhai.